Welcome to another episode of the JustUs Podcast. For now, it'll just be Tobs and I once again, and we've got ourselves quite a few things to catch up on.
Hello, buddies.
For today's subject matters, they consist of the first Shrek movie, Zack Snyder's 300, the first Thor movie, and the Transformers Prime Wars Trilogy. As always, let's go from left to right and focus on Shrek. Now,
Somebody once told me
the world is gonna roll me.
I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. Okay, let's go. Let's start.
Now, 20 years ago, Shrek was one of those movies that had quite a lot of people going crazy for it, and for good reason. First of all, it was different from anything Pixar put out. Second of all, it spun a narrative on fairy tales. And third, it was one of the best parodies out there, and to this day, similar fairy tale parodies can't quite mimic the success that Shrek has. As they always say, often imitated, never replicated.
Couldn't agree more.
And there are so many things that make Shrek so good to people that have either fans of the franchise or ironically like Shrek, as much as I hate to use those sort of words. But main thing is, Shrek is a powerhouse, and while he may not have the same level of impact that he has back then, he still has a bit of legacy worth delving into. But for now, let's talk
Yeah,
about the first movie. What do you think of it? 20 years ago compared to today?
you know when movies just age well?
Yeah?
Well, Shrek is one of them. Also, Shrek 2. They just age like fine wine. You watch them over and over again, and you still laugh, and you catch more references, and I don't know, it just can be a companion throughout all your life, and you will always enjoy them.
Yeah, especially since as you get older, you certainly get like different points of views and whatnot. I mean, back then, like pretty much people went crazy for Shrek because like he was funny, he was unique. The girl talk humor was actually charming. Although nowadays, when I think of Shrek, I sort of see it as like a bit of an acceptance story where you don't have to feel like upset about yourself for what you look like. Because there'll always be someone that
Yeah,
will like warm up to you and go beyond that. Especially with Fiona.
yeah, you have the typical three characters that are kind of weirdos, but the three of them need to accept themselves. Of course, Donkey already does a bit, but he still needs to find his place. And basically, all the characters are just presented in ways that you can connect easily.
I agree.
And especially Shrek, you didn't get those type of stories back then a lot. We still don't do, but just the typical grumpy loser living in the swamp, isolated, not valuing neither human life or any type of life at all. It's just the way it's presented, and then how much he develops into someone who can actually feel love and compassion and empathize. It's just kind of beautiful. But up to today, a lot of storytellers struggle to share those kind of stories in a genuine way, and here it's just well done.
I agree. I mean, you already mentioned Shrek sort of having this sort of role as a loner of sorts. And
Yeah,
what I like about that is that while he is openly accepted of it, like he's generally against people invading his place. I mean, you can't think about Shrek without immediately saying, "What are you doing in my swamp?" We have iconic
yeah,
phrases like "layers." Onions have layers. End of story. Bye bye. See you later. As well as him opening up to Donkey a bit about how he kind of hates being seen as this big, stupid, ugly ogre. Even if Donkey like accepts him, that surprised Shrek in a way, even if it irritated him at first.
yeah. That friendship, it's beautiful. I think that's one of the few things that holds up throughout all the franchise. That friendship between Shrek and Donkey. It is just so insufferably hilarious and compatible at the same time. With they're both just completely different, like different poles of personalities, and they just fit in so well.
What I like most about the companionship between the two is that, like, Shrek is kind of a guy that's not normally shown to open up about who he is compared to Donkey. And Donkey, on the other
Mhm.
hand, is someone that's more like talkative. He's more loud, and in a way that started to see eye to eye with each other, even if it kind of at one point made them argue. Especially when
Yeah.
Shrek initially saw Donkey as a bit of a backstabber near the end of the movie.
Hmm. Yeah.
We also
You
can't
get some emotional scenes.
we also can't forget about Fiona either, because she's one of those princesses that, like, I think has more to like than a lot of princesses out there,
Oh,
especially the Disney
by far.
princesses. I mean, she's the kind of
She kicks
character,
ass.
right? She kicks ass. She like accepts this like character that juxtaposes her, and more importantly, we get to see her embrace who she truly is from the curse.
Hmm.
Fiona's a great
Yeah,
character
yeah.
to have,
Yeah,
but
man. And Lord Farquaad.
yeah, Lord Farquaad, like not your average ordinary like villain. He's like kind of a parody of Walt Disney, but instead of being like this like ugly guy, like he sees himself as this perfectionist. He's someone that wants everyone to like bow before him and treat them as his king, even if he's, well, compensating for something.
He has like the face of the typical Giga Chad, but he's just a midget and also a horrible person.
Yeah, which is a shame because if you ignore those things, like he looks kind of cool, but unfortunately, we've seen him like act harsh towards the fairy tale creatures, especially Gingy. The way he took his legs off and was like, "Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man."
That torture scene, I used to feel it so much when I was a kid.
Yeah, like that immediately shows you just how much of a scum this guy is. Even if it's like lighter compared to other stuff, you still get that feeling.
Mhm. But yeah, I mean, some people still complain till today that Farquaad should have had like a redemption thing, but I don't agree. I think the typical monarchic figure is just too consumed with power to have that type of redemption.
He got what he fucking deserved,
Yeah.
especially since he is quite known for getting all these fairy tale creatures out from like his own place, as well as the fact that he's also infamous for like putting all these knights in a challenge that like he's like afraid of going into, despite the fact that he's kind of a selfish prick, but he wants all the knights to do the work for him because that's Farquaad.
Yeah, man, it's just a huge classic. I think I'll never forget it. And all generations should watch Shrek. It, it's just an ideal movie.
Yeah, like compared to a lot of films that come out these days, I think a lot of people remember them just because, oh, there's this one character that like fits within the sort of trend of inclusivity, which is fine, but like I want more than just inclusivity. I want a nice story. You can have your inclusivity in it too, but make it one of the things that makes the story great. Because when people honestly talk about some of the animated films that come out these days, years later, because for example, Toy Story 4 sure is beloved, but is it talked about to this day compared to the prior films,
No, it isn't.
which sucks because Toy Story is one of my favorite franchises, but its prior films certainly got more attention and love by comparison. It's eternal overall, and eternal is a word that's going to pop up in another episode.
Oh,
But yeah, Shrek is a timeless film. Whether you're seeing it back when it first came out, or 10 years after it was made, or 20 years, or 50, Shrek is a franchise that feels like an obligation to watch, but a good obligation.
more than an obligation, it's a need.
It's
You
an
need to
honor,
watch it.
an
It
honor
will
and a
improve your
privilege.
life. It will improve your mental health. It will improve your economic situation. No, it will not. But you'll
Sadly,
have
it
fun.
doesn't. But the way Shrek is still present in the minds of many to this day is beautiful. Whether it's from the memes or from people that do love the series, or hell, even from the recognition it received from higher ups of the Hollywood world, whether it's like both the award it received, the Academy Award way back in 2002, I believe, where it beat both Monsters Inc. and Jimmy Neutron.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and the craziest part is that they have animation models of those characters, with Shrek and Donkey being victorious, Sully and Mike
Yeah,
feeling
yeah, I remember
humiliated,
that.
and Jimmy Neutron being sad about losing, while Goddard just claps.
Yeah, those were like the first 3D animated movies that really had a lot of success commercially. So
Yep.
it makes sense that they invested that money.
Yeah, it was also from a time period where there was a lot of variety because nowadays it's mostly just Pixar and Minions. Whereas back then you had like different Pixar franchises to go into, different DreamWorks stuff. You have the occasional surprise film like Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, which I'd like to review at some point, as well as Monsters Inc.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, and just knowing that Shrek was sort of like the big first hit of DreamWorks. I just want to say that DreamWorks has always been my one of my, if not my favorite studio, animation studio in the West, and it just makes me so sad that it went broke, then it got bought, and it just hasn't been the same ever since. So I hope they pick up.
well, legend says that there's going to be a fifth Shrek movie, but who knows what it's going to be like? We don't know if it's going to
Yeah.
be Illuminatified, because Illumination Entertainment, the company owned by Universal, does stuff like Minions, and I believe they also done the DreamWorks films. I know they did the Shrek movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, but that's not what I want
Hmm.
Shrek to look like.
Yeah.
Like Shrek, much like SpongeBob, is one of those characters that you want to keep like evergreen, much like Bugs Bunny, much like Mickey Mouse, because
Oh,
like while they're new characters, quote unquote, they feel classic. Like they've been around for so long compared to other franchises which reboot their versions of characters.
yeah. Shrek just has this meme legend status. Do you agree?
To the point where it's also got itself recognition by the National Film Registry.
Oh yeah.
That
Not
was a
only
major
a
surprise.
meme god, but also a film god.
Yeah, like you would expect.
Did you get that? Did you get that? Did you get that?
Yeah, film god. I hope he likes the Shrek series as much as we do.
He probably does.
Yeah, especially for the satire. But like, Shrek is definitely a franchise that, if you set aside the memes and the way people will probably go like, "Ugh, Shrek, my kids love that stuff so much and it gets on my nerves." It's a great film, and even if the CGI might look quote unquote dated, I'd say it still holds up very well. It has a specific feel to it, like that style that screams Shrek. And I know there's
Hmm.
other DreamWorks properties that don't get as much attention but deserve some praise too. Like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon deserve the same level of
Hell yeah.
recognition Shrek has.
Yes, man. The Kung Fu Panda trilogy is beautiful, and the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy is, I would say, almost a masterpiece.
Yep. Which is why I think that if you're going to make yourself a trinity of DreamWorks characters, have Shrek, Poe, and Toothless be in that trinity.
Yeah,
It's going to be a great thing to see that sort of thing. Assuming that Illumination and Universal are going to treat DreamWorks the same that they once were back then,
maybe they should like make a video game with the three of them being the Trinity.
it'd be fun. Although it would likely be seen as goofy by your big name YouTubers that make all these sorts of flashy thumbnails and the like.
Yeah,
But
doesn't
overall,
need to be expected.
Shrek is one of the best films out there, one of our favorite films, and one that everyone should watch for decades to come. Much like with Star Wars, much like with uh, Spider Man, much like with Toy Story, much like with any other film that has
Unforced,
received all the recognition.
Unforced Justice League, Catwoman, Batman and Robin. Yeah, basically classics.
Speaking of Batman and Robin, please check out our roasting video of that if you haven't already.
You're welcome. Okay, let's move on to the next movie.
That being 300. Now, this is the second Zack Snyder film made in history. And of course, 300 is one of those films that you might recognize from the meme, "This is Sparta!"
So epic.
But if you set aside the meme, like what's the rest of the movie like? Well, as Zack Snyder fans, we love it. Maybe not as much for me personally as I do his stuff with DC because it feels more unique. But 300 is a film that's still worth delving into, especially if you love mythology.
I mean, you need to love mythology and you need to love the graphic novel. And you
Yeah,
need to love slow mo and cool art and badass men kicking each other's asses and blood and just great cinematography. That's all it takes to love 300.
especially since there's quite a bit of soul into it. Like, your average history film might not have the same sort of impact that 300 has, especially with it being more than just an accurate depiction of the graphic novel, but also it depicting the blood, sweat, and tears that the Spartans had throughout these fights, throughout this war, throughout the history.
It's presented with such a style and such a personality, this Sax personality and Sax style, but taken to the point that you finally see it with like 100% tack. I think Dawn of the Dead wasn't 100% sack, and this movie is. And basically, that's why he became so well known for 300 just blew everyone's mind. Up till today, I still hear people saying that 300 is their favorite movie, and like I just find that crazy.
Yep, especially when it comes to our protagonist, Leonidas, who is the one character that like you root for. Like you want him to do all these sorts of actions in this film.
Yeah, you want him to win with the 300 Spartans.
Yeah,
But as always, Zack makes us love characters only to break our hearts.
indeed. Uh,
God damn it.
the sacrifice that it do is just like it's there, it's impactful, and especially considering how far the characters have gone through this war, so to speak.
Hmm.
But there's
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
but there's like so much that makes like the rest of the characters as good as Leonidas. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, the secondary characters are like presented with very clean characteristics, and I mean, you just know kind of what's gonna happen, but at the same time you don't, and you want to see them just um, passing through those armies and killing the others, but at the same time you just want everything to have a resolution, and it's just trapped there. The movie's trapped in what the graphic novel is, and it just encapsulates it so good.
Yeah. Although honestly, it's made me want to read the novel because I've never read the graphic novel 300. Uh, it's kind of one of those franchises that makes you realize, whoa, there was actually another version of it before the film came out. I mean, with Watchmen and the other stuff like BVS, like you already know for a fact that there's a source material inspired by it, like a specific one. Whereas with 300, it kind of felt surprising since you would think it'd be an original property instead of it being a graphic novel made by Frank Miller.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, and people complain that it is historically inaccurate. First, um, it is like portraying what it is in the graphic novel, and second, even people who know about history say that it is quite respectable uh, how it is all shown. So just calm your tits.
that's what we should pretty much tell like anyone that tries to make all these sorts of bullshit articles on the film.
Yeah, yeah. I even heard Zack say once that it is in the movie. It's not a documentary. It's like an opera. I
Yeah,
always like that.
a true opera, like one that
Yeah.
has the impact that you'd get since it's got so much going on and like my mind's kind of starting to get a little distracted. But main thing is that you are right to call it an opera because to say that it's trying to be like inaccurate is kind of it's like it's supposed to be a film that's meant to be like a depiction of history, not meant to be the of all be all bit of it. If you want to look up the of all be
Hmm.
all bit of it, go to the History Channel and be sure to tell us if there was going to be any sort of Pawn Stars reruns from there. But no, seriously, the fact that it's meant to be a take on it is like what makes it work because it has its own style. It's like a story that you've created, that Zach created. It's almost
Yeah,
like he and Frank Miller thought at one point, hey, let's make our own take on the history of the Spartans because this mythology feels like it needs to have some sort of identity to it, and it works.
it works very well. Uh, Even though the reception at first was mixed, I just think it kind of became like a cult classic as well.
Yep, and like of course, I pretty much don't care what all these articles say about how it sort of like resembles white supremacy or some sort of crap. the one time they
Yeah.
did, the one time it turned 10 years old, the movie, they talked about how the attack on Charlottesville was like it was inspired by the film 300. First of all, separate fiction from reality. Second of all, touch some grass. Third of all, shut the fuck up.
Accurate.
Ah,
I, I, I
journos.
I just want to say one last thing. As always, people accuse Zack of misogyny, but surprisingly, what they don't know is that the comic barely shows, for example, the Queen throughout the story, and Zack gives her much more protagonism. So there you have something to be happy about.
Well, assuming they're going to be happy about it because they're like insufferable twats that are very unappreciative of what they get. I mean, then again, you can't really please people that are ugly inside and outside.
Yeah. Why I already seen this in Twitter, but why do Zack Snyder haters are never attractive or good looking? They're just weird nerds.
They make Al from Toy Story 2 look like a Geiga Chad. uh,
Doubt that will happen.
you know what's funny though? Another one time I was looking on Twitter and I saw someone say all podcast people have the same looking guys, and I was like, wrong. Those aren't the fictional characters we have. These are the fictional characters we have. And I put up the channel icon. Well, okay, back on 300. Should we talk about the Rise of Empire thing? Because I don't think it gets much attention.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I never watched it because it wasn't directed by Zack, and I heard it wasn't as good. So I just preferred it to stay with the original ending.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that, especially if it's gonna be like going from RoboCop to RoboCop 2 or 3, because the first RoboCop movie was very good. It felt perfect, whereas the sequels, however, felt pretty bad. Although RoboCop 2 is better than RoboCop 3, it's still like saying that getting stung by a wasp is better than getting stung by a scorpion in the balls.
Yeah, I just when I saw that it wasn't directed by Zack, I said this is probably not the same because all Zack's movies feel like his child's,
They have,
and if you just give to someone else like your kid, it won't be the same parenting.
yeah, justice.
Justice.
Uh, but yeah, you're right. It needs that specific soul to it, that specific style.
Hmm.
Because, like, if it's like when you go from bad example, but when you go from like the classic Disney movies to the direct-to-video sequels they put out from the '90s and 2000s, you lack the soul that they have because they feel more like they're trying to cash in on the popularity of them instead of making a genuine product.
Yeah, and the worst part is that I think after that, they denied Zack to make his own sequel or continue a type of story surrounding that. So that was lame.
Yeah, pretty much what else would you expect. Little did they know how much they needed him to be successful.
Look at him now, Army of the Dead.
Yep. In a way, Zack said suck at Warner Brothers with the same level of venom that Adam Moore spat towards DC. And I can't wait to
Yeah.
talk about something related to Adam Moore next time, along with a specific thing that's eternal.
Ooh.
But yeah,
So
300,
giving the foreshadowing.
300 is a great film to watch, and definitely a better film overall than Dawn of the Dead. As much as I don't want to say that because, like, look, Dawn of the Dead feels more like a beginner's point. It's good, but it doesn't really have that same sort of soul that we see later on. And 300 perfected that style of Zack.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I would watch much I enjoy watching more 300. I don't know if it's a better story or not, but I just think that as a whole, it's better.
Yep. And the best part is that I'm very happy to own my DVD copy of it for so long. because
Oh damn.
before I learned more about Zack Snyder, I just thought, oh, it's like I had the movie with me. And I think I took it to watch it in kindergarten class. No, wait, not kindergarten class. Fourth grade. Yeah, fourth grade. Back in 2008. We all saw uh
That was a long time
we all
ago.
saw 300 at that time, and I was like surprised that people actually liked the film because
Mhm.
I didn't know what to choose. People pretty much would probably think, oh, like you're a nerd for liking these sort of properties like Star Wars. So I thought, okay, let's watch 300, and they loved it. I think I think it was a little too hard for them to understand some stuff, but 300 was definitely a great film for them to watch, especially in fourth grade back then.
It wouldn't be the first movie I would make fourth graders watch, but it's just so badass and epic that why not?
Yep. And now it resides on my shelf along with Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and my own copy of Zack Snyder's Justice League, a team from Amazon UK. Of go
Ooh,
Okay, guys, if you haven't done so already, go to Amazon UK, order it from there, get the region free version.
damn.
Have you gotten your copy yet?
I'm trying to buy one from here, but I just don't find it. And Amazon, I don't know if it would be able to reach me.
Hopefully it can. I was surprised that it worked well
Hopefully.
for me. But to end it off, 300. Cool beans. Next, we're going to be talking about the first Thor movie. And between the fact that we've like gone off from Thor Ragnarok and we're preparing to see what Thor Love and Thunder has in stores, I'm going to be honest and say that I miss the classic take of Thor from the early days of the MCU.
Man, phase one just felt different.
Yeah, like sure it had those moments of it being a beginner's era and the fact that it was kind of like before we got all this sort of world building stuff. I mean, it was doing world building stuff, but not to the same extent that we have these days.
Yeah.
But
So the first Thor movie, I just want to say that I remember watching it in cinemas. I remember really liking it. It was probably 2011. And time passed, and it probably isn't one of my favorite from phase one, but the first half of the movie is just so fantastic, and the feel it has is so appropriate for Thor that it makes you miss that. Like, why didn't you keep with that same like aura?
yeah, it needs that
W-
like
w-
spirit, that style to it.
Yeah, and look at it now. It just feels so bastardized.
It's like a parody of it. Like if you were to compare it, like if I'd say if you go from like Thor, like going from Thor to Ragnarok is like going from uh a genuine movie to epic movie to parody, like going from 300 to
Yeah.
Meet the Spartans.
Uh, it kind of makes me sad because I remember, ironically, both uh, Thor and Hulk were my favorites by far. And look at them now.
Ouch.
I know,
It's pain. Massive,
too much
massive
pain.
pain. But that being said, there's still a lot to like about the first Thor movie beyond just the influence. I like the way the characters were written in this because Thor, even though he still had that sort of like aggressive, abrasive feel to him, he still felt more genuine, more natural than he was like in Ragnarok, where he felt like he had to do all these sort of silly faces just to try and make people laugh.
Yeah, it really wants to make you barf.
I mean, I wouldn't blame anyone that threw up when they saw him in Endgame. But
But yeah,
beyond that,
what
like
else it
Loki
is to say about
was
Thor Ragnarok than what it is?
like Loki was also a character I like seeing, especially now that we're seeing him in his own show for the MCU. Like Loki was kind of like great to watch because it was more than just there for the fan service to appeal to all like the little fangirls. Like he felt like he was there that he felt more genuine. He didn't feel like he was just there just to make all the humor. Sure, he's the I think sure he's like the role of mischief, the god of mischief, but at least it feels more like less in your face and more haha like made you look.
Uh, Loki felt smart. He was the god of mischief, indeed. And the good thing about this new show, Loki, is that it is connected to the original Thor because spoilers. It goes from the Avengers like inconvenience that happened with him holding the Tesseract and stuff. So it starts off there, and it just feels close to the original idea of the MCU that just felt more pure.
Yeah, I agree. Even if it sort of like has some weird shit going on that would probably make people scratch their heads, like when they talk about bringing in Teletubbies or it being inspired by Teletubbies. But
Just ignore those comments. They will always compare it. Like I remember the Russo brothers comparing it to Godfather and
oh my
stuff.
god, the Godfather this, Godfather that. Guys, come up with something new.
Uh,
Okay, how about this? Uh, the toilet paper I wipe my ass with is inspired by the Godfather, Russo. uh, the person that like I follow on Twitter is inspired by the Godfather.
who the Pope?
Oh my god. That shit just makes me miss the old days where it's all about, hey, let's talk about this movie for a sec, instead of just it being like, blah blah blah. This movie is inspired by The Godfather. This is inspired by this, inspired by that. Please watch our movie. You're gonna watch it anyways. We're gonna get millions of dollars, and we got to appeal to China. Although I will
Ship it
say,
to China.
the
Money,
only
money, money, China.
the only stupid thing that I heard back then was when one of the former CEOs of Marvel said that people like that saying that black people look similar to one another when he talked about the recast of War Machine
Oh
for
man.
like that was the only dumb thing from that time period.
Yeah, yeah. They were incredibly racist. The people on top of it just.
Yeah,
I remember that. Now I wouldn't say they are not racist. I would say they are conveniently forcing this inclusiveness. But let's leave that debate for another time.
yeah. I will say, looking at the comparisons between Don Cheadle and Terrence Howard, there is no way that they look similar to one another. Like,
Wait, they changed the actors?
yeah, Terrence Howard was in the first
When?
Iron Man movie, and Don Cheadle portrayed Rhodey from Iron Man 2 to now.
It was always the same actor.
Nope. But it does make you
I'm
wonder,
joking.
though.
I'm joking. I'm joking, man.
But this,
I
it
was
actually does
trying
make you
to.
wonder, though. Is Kevin Feige going to make some sort of like retcon by saying, "Oh, that was someone else. That was his brother, the whole time, or something"? I know Feige's going to
They
do
will try
that.
to explain it in Loki. They will try to say no because he changed because the time space security guards did this and that and yeah they will always find a way to fill those plot holes.
Yeah. Uh, what a moment! This has been a certified Marvel Studios moment. Well, 2008 Marvel Studios moment. But yeah, back to the first Thor movie. Uh, Still a great film to watch. Like some people might think it's boring just because none enough action happens, but I think the main point was for it to like focus on Thor redeeming his character a bit, having him banished to planet Earth while having his powers stripped was a great way for us to see a bit of an origin, or more so, a redemption arc for him, because we already know his origin story. Like I think at this point, people are already understanding that yes, these are origin stories for these characters. Why not we focus on them in the present time and interact with the humans?
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. They balanced it in a way that you could feel the human part a lot, and still feel the this godly uh, presence. So yeah, for it's just again, like I said, the first half is fantastic, and maybe the second half kind of slows down, and it isn't as great, but it's still good, and it has nice moments.
And in retrospect, it definitely makes Thor feel more like a character that you could take seriously. Whereas back then, he feels like he pretty much is acting like how he would if you were to meet kids at a birthday party, uh, doing the Fortnite dance, or getting hit by a
No,
fucking dodgeball.
and also one attribute that I need to mark is that the first Thor movie sets the character super well. That's why it works perfectly later on in Avengers. But
Yeah,
let's not talk about that director. But then the Dark World just fucks it up being so dull.
so dull. They might as well rename it to Thor: The Dull World.
Yeah,
Sucks out the
the,
energy.
like you have all this Norse mythology that you could explore infinitely, and you decide to take this storyline, make the villain hideous and boring, and just fucked it all up.
And by making Thor Ragnarok, instead of trying to redeem itself and making this sort of epic tale of legend, you instead focus on not only making me mess up my sentence back there, but also by copying Guardians of the Galaxy, a film that
Yeah,
was released in
and,
the
and
same year.
and they go around saying, "Look, we're so self-conscious. Haha, let's laugh at Thor."
Hey,
Dude, you can be self-conscious and at the same time you can write good stories and make your characters feel organic to what they are intrinsically. Why
yeah,
do you have to shit on them that way?
yeah, I don't want to have to see Thor like say that he's setting his own balls on fire just because he wants to make the audience laugh. Like, do we need to see Hulk try to make his face look more babyfied? No.
Yeah, it's a character devolution.
Uh, and the fact that it was
I don't know if
released
that
around the
word
same
exists.
time that another terrible comic book movie came out was proof that November was the month of comic book degeneracy.
Oh, huh.
But let's change. Let's try and be like happy about the first Thor movie. Like it's going to be great in retrospect,
Yeah, don't make me cry.
and like we don't know what Love and Thunder is going to be like. If it's going to be the same sort of Taika Waititi joke, uh, wet like humor, wet dream, or if it's going to be actually genuinely good. Like I don't know what's going to happen. Although I will say one good thing is that seeing Thor in shape takes me back to when Thor was a character I could take seriously because he wasn't just some sort of a dumbass.
Yeah. And also, Natalie Portman, wow. First of all, she's one of my favorite actresses ever. Second, her being Jane Foster, fuck yeah. I hope she's still around. I heard she will in Love and Thunder, but the thing is, Taika Waititi also said that Love and Thunder is going to be twice as ridiculous uh, Ragnarok. So rest in peace, Thor.
And I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a scene where like Jane Foster and Valkyrie like try to make Thor do some sort of lightning NSFW joke when they play with each other. Okay, that's enough of that garbage. Let's move on to other garbage instead with the Prime Wars Trilogy. Oh boy!
Nice. Nice
Oh,
connection and nice bridge you built there.
thank you, but oh boy, what have we got ourselves into with the Prime Wars Trilogy? So,
This is all yours, man. This
we've
is
been
all
waiting
yours.
for Kingdom to come and go because I want to get over it with this stupid War for Cybertron trilogy. Siege sucks. Netflix sucks. Sure, the toys are good, but the shows are ass. And the fact that they're no better than the Prime Wars trilogy is just a sign that I'm reminded of the time when I used to be excited for Combiner Wars, Titans Return, and Power of the Primes to have TV shows. Back in 2014, it was announced that we'd get like the show. It's going to be aimed for older fans, which would be like a hell yeah moment. It's G1. It's going to be for adults. It's going to be dark and mature. 2015, Combiner Wars toys have come and went. 2016, Titans Return shows up. And the script writers are talking about, oh, we're working on this stuff. Oh, our first script has been finalized in January 2016. And from there, things have not gone any prettier.
That's
Sad. Let's start off
sadly
with
that.
Combiner Wars. Let's okay, like there's no Combiner War of any sorts. Like you will have like at least 3 to 4 characters that are combiners. You have Menasor, Superion, Devastator, and Victorion, who is an original character that was made for the IDW comics as part of Hasbro's approach in making more female Transformers, which is cool, but it sucks when the fiction that they're put in is bad.
Hmm.
Yeah, like Combiner Wars is super dull. There's no real war, so to speak. Some of the other characters are missing. Like okay, there's Computron, I believe. Uh, I don't know where everyone else is. Like I forgot. It's been a while. Like they don't really put in all the characters. I don't think Superion's on there. I know Defensor nor Bruticus were in there. There's no real war, so to speak. Like, what's the war about? The enigma of combination, or the ability to become a combiner?
Well, that is what I would think of if I just read the title of the show.
Yep. But apparently, set years after the events of the Great War, Optimus Prime and Megatron have left Cybertron in hiding in the shadows, basically. Pretty much like Luke Skywalker does in the sequel trilogy, except neither of them drink blue milk. Thank God.
Oh, bummer.
Windblade, as well as Rodimus, Starscream, and the Flame of Victorion or the Flame of Mistress or whatever, hear that the Combiners are going crazy and they need the help of Optimus Prime and Megatron to like sell things or something like that. And Prime and Megatron are pretty much like broken characters. They have damage on them, and they pretty much sound like they don't really want to help at all. I mean, Optimus pretty much has to fight Windblade in order for him to like save himself from how aggressive she is. Which is funny that people call her Murder Blade, although not as much as they do Optimus Prime or calling Optimus Murderous Prime in the movies. Even though that's more justified because Optimus has went to hell in his world,
Huh.
whereas Optimus Prime in the Prime Wars trilogy is just there. Like he just does a different take of Luke Skywalker hiding from people.
Yeah.
So blah blah blah. Characters fight. There's poor action. These episodes last 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Made by Machinima. The animation is bad. Like if you've seen the screen caps or the episode clips of Robots in Disguise 2015, the animation is
Yeah.
similar to it, except there's way fewer expressions, way less interesting voice acting, and it's 5 minutes compared to the 22 minutes made for episodes. Now I know that RID 2015 isn't a great show either, but at least it has more like life into it. The characters sound more expressive, like there's more stuff going on, and while it's a downgrade from Prime, it at least manages to be a more worthwhile show than the Prime Wars Trilogy as a whole.
So they just made sure they ruined it.
Well, pretty much like the main idea was like, oh, this is gonna be like Game of Thrones for Transformers, and it's G1, and please like be nice to us in the message boards. Oh yeah, and apparently Starscream becomes a combiner, but he's just literally a floating virtual head with everyone else in his possession. Devastator, whoever else was there. Like he doesn't really become a combiner, so to speak. It's kind of like think of like the Cloud of Galactus from the Fantastic Four: Rise of Silver Surfer movie, except in terrible animation.
So like I'm pretty sure this trilogy wasn't even that well known or didn't have too much of attention.
It did get a lot of attention.
Would you say that it is because of the quality?
People like Transformers fans are big. Whether you're like a long time fan like me or other people on the message boards or someone that just goes on Facebook and says I miss my childhood. G1 is the best, or the original Transformers are the best. Hashtag 80s, hashtag nostalgia, hashtag they don't make them like they used to. But the thing is
Yeah.
that like if you're like okay, average G1 fans aren't going to give a shit. It's their childhood, it's back, it's dark and mature because that's totally going to make it good. Although they're going to complain about something like Batman v Superman, despite that being far superior, because of course it is. And
Yeah.
then, and then they're going to try and have the audacity by saying, "Oh, Prime Wars is good because like it's in the '80s and it's here." But, like, no, Prime Wars sucks because it's schlock. The Prime Wars trilogy doesn't know how to be a good product. It's it's like far worse than Energon was because at least Energon had more interesting voice acting and at least had traditional episode runtime.
Yeah. What is it about the runtime? Was it a web series and kind of experimental?
It was a web series,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and the fact that it's meant for older fans, the fact that they try to market it as such, was just like a sign that things weren't going to go very well because it was mostly just about the hype. It was mostly about the nostalgia put into it instead of making a genuine fucking product.
Yeah, that happens too often.
And that's something we're seeing again with the Netflix War for Cybertron trilogy, and I fear that it's going to be a similar thing with Masters of the Universe made by Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Let's hope it's not the case for that secret eternal thing, and also for this new He-Man show that's coming
Well, to
to
tell you the
Netflix.
truth, I'm not a He-Man fan. Like, I want to learn more about it, but people are pretty much saying that like it's going to be a bait and switch thing because He-Man might get replaced. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from what people say. But I think the Eternal thing I'm hiding for the next episode is safe because it's not made by the same wannabe nerds that run Netflix Geeked.
Cool. Thank God.
Yeah, it's made by Toei, which is a company that is notorious for something it's doing of late, but that's a story for another day.
Eh,
But back to the
well,
Prime Wars trilogy. If you thought Combiner Wars was just one and done, you're wrong. Because we're going to Titans Return and it's no better. There's a lack of Titans Return stuff. I mean, okay, sure, they make Hot Rod into look like his toy, but that's pretty much it. We bring an Overload who sounds like the KFC guy. There's uh like Triptychon's there. Okay, Metroplex is in the last episode of Combiner Wars, but it was an arm. It was just a friggin' arm. And he just slapped Starscream right there. And okay, sure, we have like I don't remember. I think Fortress Maximus was in the series as like a proper Titan, but maybe when like he helped Metroplex fight Trypticon when Trypticon was possessed by Starscream and when Metroplex was dry humping Trypticon. Not exactly, but it looked like it because of the poor animation. Uh, Now let's talk about some new things that happened. Emissary, the Titan Master that portrays or like is connected to Fortress Maximus, is voiced by Jason David Frank. Now, do you know who Jason David Frank is?
Personally, I don't.
He is Tommy Oliver, one of the most famous Power Ranger actors in history. Well, Jason
Wow.
David Frank, the actor, Tommy Oliver, the character. You already know, you probably might know him from Mighty Morphin, but he's also been in Zeo, Turbo, and in Dino Thunder, which is my favorite
Oh yeah,
season.
yeah.
Now, of
I think I
course,
know who you're talking.
Jason David Frank is one of those guys that puts himself in all these roles because he wants to be famous. He wants to win over 90s kids that are grown ups at this point. So, in a way, it'd be kind of cool and weirdly foreshadows the fact that 2 years later, Hasbro would become the new owners of Power Rangers, which I don't think he's been involved in any sort of projects related to Hasbro yet, apart from the small stuff. Hell, I don't think he did his like any redubs for his voice, for his little cameo in Beast Morphers from the stock footage that they had. I don't know.
Would you like to give him more work?
Well, I'd love to see him work as like the trailer announcer for the JustUs Podcast, but that's just way too much. It's a pipe dream.
Yeah, and the salary wouldn't be that good.
Yeah, and of course, considering the fact that he's a martial artist, I don't want to upset him. It'd be like upsetting a hive of wasps. But
Yeah, no, don't do that.
I think he and Johnny on Bosch, who is best known for portraying Adam Park in MMPR, as well as other characters, like I think he voices some guy with green hair from My Hero Academia. Uh, he voices a white cat who is going to be in that little Eternal thing, and
Oh,
like Johnny on Bosch is second best known to me for voicing Bumblebee in the War for Cybertron games, which is different from the Netflix show. But just in the first game, in Fall of Cybertron, he has no voice.
gee. So they have reputation,
Yep. But
but you don't see that in this Prime trilogy.
the Prime Wars Trilogy, like I know Jason David Frank from being in there, but I much prefer to like pretend that the Prime Wars Trilogy is just a thing of the past and focus on when Tommy Oliver was great in Dino Thunder.
Hmm.
And by the way, if you're new to the channel and seeing this video, I suggest you watch my reviews on Dino Thunder at some point. I'm going to get back to doing those more often. But back to the Prime Wars trilogy, I should mention that Peter Cullen returns to voice Optimus Prime because in Combiner Wars he was voiced by some guy named John Bailey, who sounds like Peter Cullen, but sounds more like a uh, snarky sort of parody version of Optimus Prime. Although now he's in official works, it's weird to describe him
Why is it weird?
because John Bailey sounds more like a third rate Optimus Prime voice clone, whereas Peter Cullen has the soul, the influence. John Bailey sounds more like a stand-in who's there just for the sake of filling in for Peter Cullen when he's not available or to save budget, which Peter Cullen outright mentions when he was criticizing his involvement with the Bumblebee movie.
Oh man.
Another reason for me to hate that stupid film as much as I do the Prime Wars trilogy. But here, Peter Cullen is in the Prime Wars trilogy after not being in Combiner Wars. Although Frank Welker never returned to voice Megatron in the other stuff. Like that was all some other guy who voices him in the War for Cybertron trilogy afterwards. Not like it matters anyhow. Frank Welker isn't going to make the series any better, and unfortunately, Peter Cullen can't save the Prime Wars trilogy. Neither can what's his face, Judd Nelson, save the series when he voiced Hot Rod. Not even Mark Hamill can save it when he voiced Megatronus, because the series sucks either way. And do I need to say more about Power of the Primes? Like, you have Grimlock, you have the Dinobots, some of them die. Uh, Predaking dies too easily. Optimus Primal's in there, but he's voiced by Ron Perlman, who is Hellboy, and not Gary Chalk.
Mm-hmm.
See, these things are kind of
So
weird.
yeah,
Like, like, it's like, are they trying to like win over the fan service, or are they not? Because at some point, it feels like they're trying to be like super cool with the fan service, but then they start to be super cheap, and they just give us the next best thing and act like, here you go, hope you like our stuff. G1 for life, right? Nope.
do you want my opinion on that? I think that instead of focusing on making a project, they just focus on bringing names and they focus on appealing. So that will never work out, or it will not be remembered as well as other things.
Yeah. Like, when it comes to TV shows specifically, like Beast Wars, the Unicron trilogy, animated and Prime, are iconic because they have unique voices. They have unique identities to them. Whereas with the Prime Wars trilogy, a stupid show
Well,
making me thirsty.
God damn you!
Stupid machinima. But like, whereas this and War for Cybertron trilogy, by comparison, are shallow products that only rely on fan service as well as nostalgia to win people over, because that's all people give a fuck about. Fan service without the quality. And that's a major, major no-no in my opinion. You can have fan service if you want, but I need more meat and potatoes than just that.
I agree.
So
Because
overall, the Prime
I
Wars
mean,
trilogy is ass. And it's kind of a shame that we had to end it off on a sour note, because Shrek is a great movie. 300 is
yeah,
another great movie. Thor is underrated. And we go
we kind of
downhill with this.
started up there like legendary top quality product to boom, complete ass, shitty, lazy, uh, Frankenstein. Yeah.
So what's our lesson today, kids? Ogres and Spartans are the best things in the world. As Guardians were great back then, and 80s nostalgia fan service can be more of a curse than a blessing. And I think now I should end off the episode because I need to get something to drink and wash away the bad taste of the Prime Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that does
See
it for
you,
today.
everyone. Pleasure.
That does it for today, everybody. Next time you see us, hopefully we'll be able to delve into more interesting things. I mean, we're going to be asking who's watching The Watchmen, as well as think about a bird and a snow warrior. Potentially delve into a classic console, and check out something that's eternal from a magical heroine. But until then, thanks for waiting for this episode to pop up.
See you, buddies.
Take care, everybody.
Wait, don't forget to subscribe. If you do, I'll give you a headbutt. That's ogre for thank you.